Alright guys, how's it going? Welcome back. You join me today as I'm sat in my 2001 Mazda MX5. I'm just writing a little bit of a script for today's episode, but I'm at a bit of a loss. What can I tell you about the terrific MX5 that you don't already know? I could tell you it's been around for 30 years, but you know that already. I could tell you that it was Japan's answer to all the British sports cars of yesteryear. You know, the ones that we've all driven past in laybys over the years, waiting for the AA men. I think I'll leave that out. I've got a couple of jokes about hairdressers, cabin crew, you know, the usual sort of Mazda MX5 owners, but that's all a little bit predictable. I think instead, we'll just take it for a drive. I'll just get straight to it. The MX5 is the best sports car you can buy on a tight budget. It's far better than most of its rivals, even the more expensive ones. When I think of the word sports car, it's the MX5 that immediately springs to mind. Personally, I wouldn't want to own a stripped out Lotus sports car and drive it on a daily basis because I know it would annoy me. I like to have some luxuries. Equally, I wouldn't want an old SLK either because although they're far more luxurious, all that extra weight and everything just ruins the driving experience. So that's where the MX5 comes into play because they get the balance just right. There are a few nice optional extras so it doesn't feel like you're sat in a Vietnamese prison cell, but not so many that it feels like a heavy heifer lump. The model I'm in today is a 2001 1.8 litre Jasper Conran edition. If you've never heard of him, I'll explain. He's not a rally driver or race car driver or NASCAR driver. He doesn't own a Formula 1 team. As far as I'm aware, he's got no sort of credentials in that area at all. He's actually the fella who designs boxer shorts for Debenhams. I'm not sure why Mazda thought that his name would sell more MX-5s, but nevertheless, that's what they did. It just means you get thicker carpets, different alloy wheels, leather interior, so you do get quite a few nice extras. But by adding his name, it doesn't really help them with the rather camp image that the MX-5 has. What they should have done instead was made the MX-5 Vinnie Jones edition. I'm sat here now at 70 miles an hour on the dual carriageway. It is very windy here today, so it might be unfair, but there is quite a lot of wind noise. There's no insulation from the lightweight roof, so you do hear a lot, and I am having to speak quite loud. But then the MX-5 wasn't made for motorways, it was made for the B roads, and that's where it really comes into its own. One downside to driving an MX-5 is that everybody will repeat that tired old cliche and suggest that you're a hairdresser or cabin crew or whatever, as I mentioned in the intro. They really are missing the point, and the joke's on them because they're missing out on what is a excellent little sports car. You can have a lot of fun in this thing without going over the speed limit. First and foremost, you get an excellent 5-speed manual gearbox. Later models came with a 6-speed, but you're far better with this 5-speed. The changes are slick and crisp and precise. The roof folds down manually with no expensive, complicated motors that can fail. It just takes a couple of seconds. You just unlatch these two and drop it back, and away you go. It has a boot into which you can place some things. Alright, it's no good if you're an Uber driver, but for a car of this kind, it's big enough. Perfectly big enough to fit an overnight bag or something like that. Crucially, it's rear-wheel drive, so you can take it out on a nice day like this and have some fun with it. It weighs about as much as Kate Moss after a crash diet, and all that means is that you don't need a massive engine under the bonnet to have some fun. So rather than a big V6 or a turbocharged or supercharged unit, all you get is a naturally aspirated 1.8 litre 4-cylinder petrol. This model produces 140 horsepower, which is enough. They also made a 1.6 litre engine, but you're better off with a 1.8. It was more reliable, you get more horsepower, so why not? It also has a limited slip diff. Now I won't go into the ins and outs of how that works because I don't own any corduroy or wear an anorak. But what I will say is that that's a very good thing to have on a car like this. This is the Mark II MX5. The Mark I had pop-up headlamps. The Mark II came out in the late 90s. Many people dismissed it for being a little bit boring, a little bit of a plain Jane. But I quite like that because it's not too fussy. It just does what it says on the tin. It's sort of a no-frills sports car. It doesn't shout or scream, "Look at me," every 5 minutes. The Mark II is my favourite MX5. Some people prefer the early ones or the later ones. You can disagree with me if you like, that's fine. I'm sure many of you will. Make sure you put your cap locks on. But I just think for pure driving pleasure on the cheap, they're unbeatable. The interior is a little bit Japanese, and what I mean by that is it's a little bit bland and uninspiring, but everything still works after 19 years. Certainly an Audi TT has a nicer interior, but that doesn't really matter. The seats are comfortable, the steering's perfect. Everything's sort of set up for the driver. Who really cares what it looks like? Trying to use it every day would annoy me a little bit. The ride's on the firm side, even though the seats are comfortable. And because it's that low to the ground, getting in and out of it is a bit of a challenge. Even though I'm not 70 years old or 25 stone, it is a bit difficult to get in and out of. Now onto the R word. I'm not talking about reliability because you needn't worry about that. I'm talking more about rust. MX5s have a horrible reputation for rotting away. The early ones were terrible for it. The Mark IIs were slightly better, but even this one that's only done 89,000 miles over its 19 years, if you check back through its MOT history, there are some advices that have been rectified about corrosion and rust. So if you're looking to buy one, just have a good old dig around and make sure it's been repaired. If you've got one right now, make sure that you wax oil it and protect it. Oh, also make sure the cam belt's been replaced. That's due every 60,000 miles, and you may as well do the water pump while you're at it. The really good thing about the MX5, apart from the way it drives, is that you don't need deep pockets to run one. They're cheap to buy, cheap to maintain, cheap to run. It really won't break the bank. Servicing costs are inexpensive, parts are plentiful. The only expensive thing here in the UK is the road tax, because even for an old car like this, the road tax is £325 a year. Insurance costs are quite low too, because most big companies realise that this is your second or third car, so don't charge the earth for it. There are lots of rivals to the MX5, but in my opinion the MX5 is the best one. You could go for an SLK, but they just don't have the same driving pleasure. Same goes for the TT really. You could buy an MR2, but again, same goes. If you want a cheap, reliable little sports car that you can take out whenever the weather's nice, you really needn't look any further than the MX5. So thanks once again for watching. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't done already. If you've got any comments or questions, leave them below and I'll do my best to get back to you. So yeah, cheers guys. I'll see you next time.